Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to an update video of sorts, I guess. No walk on today because once again, I'm still monkeying around with this setup here. So basically, what I've done, still using the same camera, now I'm actually trying to use the desktop and to make this into more of a dedicated recording space, as opposed to me moving around the laptop and sitting awkwardly in the corner. Plus, it's a little bit better placement for this mic. I think we'll find out when I'm editing this. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to do a channel update, plans for the following year, because once we get into December, the rest of the holidays start to roll around. And then everybody's schedule starts to get a little wacky, mine included. And honestly, the last week ish of the year, I kind of just want to relax, other than doing my usual game of the month of the year video. So that's actually the first thing I want to talk about. For those of you who've been kicking around for a minute, product placement. Um, I tend to do a game of the month of the year because when it comes to game of the year itself, if the Game Awards are any way to judge, it's a little strange, because I tend to play games throughout different years, different generations, and everything like that, right? And now the Game Awards think DLC could technically qualify as Game of the Year, and I would almost argue sure. I don't think that is technically a full blown category mixture. I think it should be like DLC of the year or main DLC of the year or whatever. But I'm not going to get into the politics of it. But when it comes to Game of the Month of the Year, the way I used to do it back in the glorious days of the YouTube gaming community, got it in early. I used to do a monthly update video of games I finished for that month, and then I would award one game of the month. And then at the end of the year, 12 games would go in, only one game would come out. And that obviously that stopped. And now with the way I do this channel in general, that just really isn't much of a thing. And to be honest, it's a lot of time. But what I have noticed this year in particular, because I keep track of everything on Backloggery of what I finish. Don't go in there looking for my collection because it's horribly outdated. Oh, and some of you guys may know, during Thanksgiving, I grabbed the wrong pot, as if this hand is no indication. But the good news is we were we were still able to beat Kirby Nightmare and Dreamland with this nonsense. But hey, the price you pay for fam, right? Price you pay for fam. But anyway, so I basically use Backloggery to keep track of everything I finish in a given month. And I'll be honest, this year has a couple stinkers in it, and one month in particular is loaded with bangers. And I think it would be a disservice to go into like February and be like, okay, this game is technically in the running. So gonna change it up a little bit. And I think I may have done this last year too. I'm just gonna pick 12 games that I think were exemplary for the year, just to keep that 12-month theme. I'm gonna try to spread out the months, but like one month in particular, I'm not gonna say which one. I was like, oh man, I like these games were good, man, but February and March, ooh, like it kind of hurts. So that will be a video, which will come out next year, obviously. Maybe towards the end of this year, depending on when I sit down and edit it. Or rather, just sit down and record it because it tends to be like 2.5 freaking hours. And I did do runners up as well. I combined that into one video originally. I'm debating on doing that again. But I am going to ask you guys, do you think maybe I should split it into two? I mean, ultimately, I'm just going to record it all once. I'm just going to awkwardly cut it because, that's how we roll here on the Return to Mother Base program. But you tell me whatever you want. I know a bunch of you guys tend to do your house chores and put me on in the background, just listen to me ramble. But one day I'm going to put up some footage of something and you're not going to know. That'll never happen. Anyway, so that's the plan with Game of the Month of the Year for 2024. And going into 2025, I do have to say I really, really enjoy doing the 4 quarters, 4 games, 4 years challenge. I really do think it helped me go into my backlog a bit more, but it also allowed me some flexibility to play a remaster or a different version of a game that I hadn't normally or I hadn't finished before. Because I'll be honest, and I've been seeing this from a lot of channels recently. RNG Gamer, at least as of this recording, recently put up a very interesting video, and I know he's writing the algorithm on the thumbnail and on the title of selling my game collection, but essentially it is a mass review of an FPGA, a niche FPGA console he purchased. Now, I have a bunch of FPGA stuff myself, but these are also stations that work with, sorcery, as it were. And he even said, like, no, I'm not getting rid of my collection, but in terms of ease of use and not having to manage with plugs and cables and controllers and discs that don't want to be read and this, that, and the third, yeah, it's a big fucking help. And that's really where I still forgot to turn off the autofocus, didn't I? Anyway, but he said it was a big help for him to actually go through his games because he plays everything randomly. That's his shtick. I'm not gonna do that myself because I own a lot of visual novels, and I don't think I could literally go through 13 visual novels back to back to back, especially since a bunch of them are Otome. And he even said, you know, having an FPGA console, no, I'm not going to sell off my collection. But does it help me go through games and want to play older generations that I may not have had hooked up or anything like that? Absolutely. That's why I got on the FPGA train. I have I have a host of analog stuff. Actually didn't go for the analog N64 because, to be honest with you, I have like 11 N64 games, and what I did end up purchasing was a Retroid Pocket, primarily for the handheld, not the handheld, the disc-based stuff, PlayStation 1, Sega CD, all that stuff. Because those RPGs, I mean, some of them, yes, you can play in the Vita, and the Vita is a marvelous place for that with the OLED screen. But the process of, once again with Sorcery, getting those to work on a Vita when they're not natively supposed to is a little bit of a process. It's a little clunky. It's a little annoying. And it's a first world problem, sure. But if I can just put everything on an SD card, go in there and have a save state, I'm happy with that. I do miss having Suspend. The Vita is marvelous for that, especially 3DS as well. And, playing the 3DS and the Vita specifically this year was great because basically, you know, when my wife is home for, if her school is closed or whatever, she hangs out in here. I work outside. I can bring it with me. I could just put in Suspend. I just plug it in next to me, at my makeshift workstation. And, when I have some downtime, I pop it in, I pop it open, play it, and here, same difference. And I just leave it on standby the whole time. And, that's pretty much how I keep the batteries going is I don't keep them on standby all the time. But when I'm actively playing something, I don't bother turning it on and off. I just put it in the standby. So the FPGA stuff for RNG Gamer, he said that really, really helped him. And the one he reviewed, I'll be honest, beautiful. Like, I love it. Way out of my price range, although I will admit it would help me with a bunch of clutter. And that brings me into the next point of this challenge too. Utilizing the FPGA, specifically the Analog Pocket, because, some more sorcery happened and you can actually play NES, Game Boy Color, SNES, Genesis, and Turbo, regular Turbo, on it now. I know they were working on a core for a CD. I know they were working on, or have been working on one for a Neo Geo. I don't know how good they are, but the SNES, the Genesis ones, all that stuff, wonderful. Can't complain about it. That is great for going back and playing those games because, once again, while you cannot, if I believe you cannot use save states in those FPGA things, honestly, I don't use them to cheese systems. I use them because sometimes I gotta save and I gotta go. And not being able to put something into sleep is a little bit of a pain in the butt, and that's ultimately where the Retroid Pocket comes in. Because I can't put this stuff to sleep or suspend it if I have to. I would prefer to use original hardware or an official re-release of things like one of these, compilation collections from Capcom or Sega or SNK or something like that. But, most of those are on the Switch, which is great. But, not all of them are a thing, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they're really expensive. And in the case of the fucking Taito LCD games, they're not even in English, as much as I would love to kill three birds with one stone, because I'll be honest, I don't think I'm really going to whip out Time Gal or anything like that anytime soon, unless, now that I have the Retroid Pocket, I'm a little bit more prone to think like that. So, long-winded way of trying to say for 2025, I am going to come up with yet another theme, one that is cross-generational. I'm not going to limit myself to a series like, let's wrap up all the Final Fantasy stuff I haven't finished. Or, maybe the theme will be spin-offs, in which case, I'll be honest with you, it's going to be a bunch of Final Fantasy stuff. You know what I mean? So I was thinking of looking up, if you guys have any ideas, chime them in. I'm more than welcome to entertain ideas. Because I was thinking, if it's going to be 2025, hopefully, maybe I can go with stuff that just turned 25 years old. But then again, I also did the Leap Kid thing because I'm a Leap Kid. So maybe I'll do stuff that has music by Sakuraba or something like that. Or, maybe I do an alphabetical thing, like, 4 quarters, 4 games, 4 years. But instead of it being, stuff that came out in, Leap Kid things, what games that start with A, games that start with L, games that start with E, and games that start with X, which is pretty much Xyz. That's the only game I know. But you get the idea. I'm gonna try to come up with some stuff. But if you guys have any ideas, I'm more than welcome to hear them. I for sure have a ton of games that I need to play. The next thing I do want to cover is some real life stuff. Obviously, already touching on like me dipping my toes into sorcery and FPGA a bit more. A bunch of you guys know I have a storage unit filled with garbage and Christmas decorations, which I've actually moved to the house. I'm actually trying to get rid of said storage unit because they just jacked up the price ridiculously. When we first got it, it was like $85 a month, whatever. And it's not even that big. It's small. It's smaller than this room, to be fair. Which, believe it or not, is like 14 by 14. Yeah, right. Manhattan. What can you do? So, it's now like almost $150 a month, and I'm just like, dude, I go there like once a month to get like a bunch of stuff for like, a game challenger. I'm like, oh, I'm in the mood to play this, or, do I have this, or oh, there's a remaster or a remake or a compilation. I don't need to have 50 copies of XYZ game. Stuff like that. So I'm slowly trying to do a filter purge and bring stuff home. As I finish that and pretty much get these into their final form, I may do collection videos here and there as well, because I really don't foresee them changing that much. Because to be honest, I do feel like I'm really done with retro collecting at this point. Truthfully, there's like a handful of things, and my Midwest Gaming Classic crew, they know what those games are. And they're like so overpriced that I'm not even going to bother, right? With the exception of Star Tropics, I do kind of want that complete in box. But I need the letter. I need the goddamn letter. And every time I find a decent looking one, there ain't no letter. And the letter is like nothing special, But I do think I'm going to do collection videos because at that point, I think they will be really personal. It's not going to be so much like me saying like, here's Skyblazer. There's going to be a story behind it 9 times out of 10. And to be honest, I feel like having once again, a more curated collection is going to encourage me to play these games more. Because there have been times like I've gone through Game Eye and I do a randomizer just to see what it pulls up. And I'll be honest with you, it's worse than fucking Apple Music when it comes to picking music according to your mood. I'm like, I'm depressed. I want to listen to something happy, and then it puts on Seek and Destroy by Metallica. Great song, but not when you're depressed. Ride the Lightning is really not appropriate either, and that did happen for fact. And one of the other things I want to talk about is Video Games Gaiden. I have really enjoyed doing this, and it is something I've been kicking around a while, and by a while I mean within like the last year or so. Because as much as I joke about the glorious days of the YouTube gaming community, I really do feel like, unfortunately, it's kind of dead. And by dead, I don't mean like there aren't circles of communication. I'm in a handful of Discords. I talk with people all the time. And there are a couple of YouTube-based podcasts I listen to. And, it's just a bunch of guys in a room with, lighting just like mine. Maybe they decided, hey, it's Cyber Monday. I'm going to get me a new fancy mic. And, it's like a $30 bargain. Super Saiyajin bargain sale mic like this one. And, it does the job. It works. This is not a professional thing. I do this for fun on the side, right? It's not about financial gain for me or a future career. That being said, I do want to make a couple of changes for it moving into 2025. So I actually already have the next episode, at least as of this recording. The episode may already be out. It depends on when I decide to place this one. I already have the last one for this year done. So for 2025, it's going to continue. Like I said, I really enjoy doing it. And I think it's been some of the best conversation I've had with people, especially, I mean, obviously we record it, but then in the case of some of you guys, we talked like an hour before and an hour after. And it's real people, right? It's not like, the clickbaity, the and all that stuff. It's like you talk about real life stuff, and it's kind of refreshing at the same time. But, I do think, much like herding cats, getting people to be on the show between time differences and everything else is a little challenging, to say the least. So I think I'm going to keep it to, or at least attempt to keep it to one a month. So there'll be 12 of them a year. So this year, I think we'll end up with 4 or 5, which is fine. But I may not have one up in January, because what I want to do is kind of format the backgrounds and the fonts and all that into like kind of like a seasonal thing. So I mean, honestly, I kind of just threw everything together in Canva, let's just keep it 100, right? But and I'm not paying for no graphic design shit. Trust me, I already asked my friend. He was like, well, and I was like, I was thinking more like a birthday gift, but all right. But like I kind of want to like divide it into seasons, and I'll make a playlist, and then that way, maybe the backgrounds are different, maybe the fonts are different, maybe I'll change the thumbnail format, so at least that way there's a differentiator. And I told myself, if I make one of these or 2 of these and I really like it, I'll get a decent mic, which I did, I think. And then if I keep doing them, maybe I'll get myself a better webcam, which the other webcam is already better than my standard camera. I think I did. It's a little too smart for its own good, because it keeps trying to focus on stuff and I have to keep making jump cuts. But other than that, it works. And, now I've rearranged the desk a little bit. And, now I have, different ways to record stuff. And, I'm actually putting forth an effort into this, which isn't asking for sympathy. It's just me saying I really do like doing this. I find it really fun. And it is one of those things where once I just get like all this background bullshit set up, I kind of just sit down and just go through it. It's been great talking with people and, asking people to come on the show. And some folks like have just been like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And a common theme I have heard from several folks I have asked where games are involved are, dude, slow the fuck down. You play through these things way too fast. I can't keep up. And yeah, listen, if you happen to be on an episode where I say, let's play a game, don't feel like you have to finish it in 2 days. All right. Like, take your time. I don't have children and I work from home and I have a lot of downtime towards the end of the year. Okay. That's all it is. Don't worry. Once we hit the spring, I will be with you being behind and stuff. Look at the backloggery. It'll tell you. But it's been really fun. I think like in terms of like game selection from people and, everything else, it's been really cool. And I've enjoyed coming up or brainstorming topics with people. That being said, this isn't isolated to me asking people to be on the show. Listen to me. Asking to come on Video Games Guy Dan. If you're interested, like, let me know, because unless and this is where I keep saying gaming divine inspiration, unless I have a topic or something I think like, and I got to highlight my boy, because every time I mention him, I know he puts something down in the comments, and he's probably is nodding around already. Real Louie, The second I said to him, hey, would you do a thing with platformers? He said yes. Like, because I know that's his thing, right? And I gave him a full list, and, he immediately was like, ooh, I've been meaning to play this one. Like, there's a mutual benefit to that, right? Even with Emperor Fox, I was like, hey, I was thinking about doing a working design thing, because when he saw the first episode, he was like, dude, I would totally do something like this. Yeah, that. And as of this recording, one of the guests actually doesn't even do anything on YouTube, and I think that's cool. That's what this is about. It's about conversation, it's about discovery, it's about everybody's gaming journey and story. That being said, you do not necessarily need to play a game or say, hey, Alex, I don't have time, or Alex, I feel like I have to play XYZ game or genre or whatever for an episode, right? Like, if you would rather just have a conversation about a particular topic, that is perfectly fine. The only reason why I pick games or suggest games is because I know each individual is going to have something to add to the conversation. Blink, for example, no idea that he had an In the Groove arcade machine at home. Had no idea. Also had no idea that he technically lived a 1950s sitcom in real life, because that was way too real. But seriously, stuff like that is, it's fun. It's unique. And I think it really speaks to an individual and what makes an individual, not so much what YouTube wants an individual to be. And it's fun. It's fun for me. I really do enjoy it. And I do feel like I would not have played, again, I'm using past episodes because they've happened, Mad Rat Dead, which, spoiler, I'm just going to say it here, is in the running for Game of the Month of the year. Believe it or not, that game was probably one of the most unique things I have played this year. But I'm not going to spoil the rest. And finally, as these things go, I am really looking forward to continuing to do YouTube again in 2025. And I do think there are some things I want to do better for me and for the channel. Again, this is a hobby thing. I'm not looking to make this a career. I already have one, and it's enough as it is. But and a bunch of you guys already messed with me on it. You guys know I have no fucking patience for thumbnails. Like, I really don't. As it is, I find a format. I like standardized things. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. I find a standard. I stick to it. But I do realize if I want to expand this community, because Video Games Gaiden is essentially about community, I realize I need to do a little bit more on that. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I am aware of it, to be completely honest. And that's something I want to do a little bit better, as my YouTube gaming resolution, as it were. But I also want to ask people outside of my comfort zone that I don't fully know, if they're interested, on at least, showing up and chatting for an hour or whatever it is. I would love to say, like, oh, I'm going to get, a YouTube celebrity on the thing. But, it's like, I've met people, and I really have no problems talking with people. But at the same time, listen, a bunch of them are on the West Coast, man. I already wake up at 3 a.m. I can't stay up. It literally, it's some of it's a problem. Some of it's a problem. And there are a couple of people in Japan I talk to from time to time. That I can do. Because I can be up. That's not a problem. They have to be up. But, it is what it is. But seriously, I just wanted to put up this little video here just to say, thank you to everybody who's been sticking with me, watching the content, and commenting, especially on Video Games Gaiden, because it is something I've thought about for a while. And I'll be honest, it's a combination of laziness and just knowing the way I do content here on YouTube. And I hate even using that word, content. The way I operate on this channel is very grassroots. It's very old school, because I ultimately just don't feed into this bullshit, But at the same time, I really want to extend that community. And I know a bunch of YouTube channels I follow, they have Discords and everything else. My phone's blown up at work all the time, man. I can't afford to take on another Discord. I another Discord community, even if I turn off the notifications, I look at the phone, it's at 50% and it's not even 10 a.m., you know? Like something's got to give. And at least with this, you know, for me, it's I'm able to connect to somebody one-on-one, you know? And I do feel like sometimes you get more of a story when you hear somebody via voice and inflection and emotion and facial expression than you do through text. I think that's also like tying it back to video games. That's why I like cinematic style video games like Kojima stuff where people tend to get annoyed by it because I'm able to see the filmmaker, and I'm using him in conjunction because let's be honest, him and the other guy who did Heavy Rain have wanted to make movies for years, but nobody will let them. You know, that's their spiel, right? So for me, I could put it all in text, which is great, or I could have an active conversation with somebody and somebody may listen something from it. I think to me, that's probably the more important thing. But anyway, this has been going on long enough. I've been Alex. Depending on when I put this out, happy holidays, everybody. I wish you all the best. Take care.